The True Objective Podcast with Objectivist girl Lauren Rumpler and Liberty.me writer Calvin Thompson. The True Objective Podcast, dispelling myths about our society.
Hi guys! Welcome back to the True Objective Podcast. We missed you so much. We could not wait to come back, and we are doing it from my brand new studio in my apartment, so how convenient. And so I've got Calvin with me. Say hi, Calvin!
Hi, everyone.
Okay, guys, so we are on part 4 of the President series, and we are so excited because we have some really horrible presidents at this point, and it's going to be really, really hard because I have to play defense. And so we are going to start today with James Monroe. Okay, so Calvin, here's the good things that I think James Monroe did.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so he signed the treaty to transfer Florida to the U.S. from Spain.
Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Is that really a good thing?
Well, it was peaceful. I mean, it was a treaty, right? So, you gotta give him, half credit. I give him half credit, at least. Right? Can we go with half credit?
It's one of those things where unless every single person who lived in Florida, unanimously agreed to go over there. And then there's the fact that
That's true. It's like transferring a slave peacefully. The owners are peaceful about it, but the slave, not so much.
Not only that, but there were a hell of a lot of Native Americans in Florida at the same time. I'm sure they didn't particularly like the presence of the United States there, especially on account of how the United States government messed with them a lot more than the Spanish one ever did.
That's true. The U.S. government is
so what else you got?
A dictator. Okay, so they got roads started to create more mobility for Americans. More roads! So, I actually think that as it was kind of like the argument I made for the trains, is that at the time, I don't think it really occurred I don't think there were any people out there that were able to finance roads, and I think it put us on the track where we could actually start to fight for liberty. So I really feel like roads kind of put us on a track, and I feel like the government doing it could have been a good thing.
You don't think that back in the days of horse and buggy, people could make dirt trails and
but I feel
things like that all by themselves?
Do
you really think we needed the government for that?
All right. I'll give you that one. All right, so go ahead, bring it to me.
Yourself.
Oh, God.
Okay, so, Seminole War in Florida on his hands.
Oh, yeah.
That's where...
That was a particularly bad one.
Yep, exterminating Indians,
Yeah.
Good times. Let's see, that also just laid the groundwork for a lot more guerrilla warfare in Florida and Georgia in the future. Let's see. He oversaw the Panic of 1819 and the first major peacetime financial crisis in the United States. And that led to a collapse in the American economy, which persisted to 1821. It was also ruled during his presidency that states could not tax federal agencies, so, that was nice of him. Let's see.
Yeah, I should have listed that one, huh?
Let's see. He had a hand in creating the National Bank, and he was behind the Monroe Doctrine, of course, hence the name. Although John Quincy Adams had a lot to do with
that is really created a lot of bad ramifications over the years, hasn't it?
On the other hand, the basic idea of it is pretty good, which is basically European nations should not mess with the small countries over here, or else faced some sort of punitive measure. But it was used later on, especially by Teddy Roosevelt, to
it was a good thing at first.
A lot of people.
Yeah, it was a good thing at first, and yet it was used for good purposes at first, but yet it's turned into this thing that has had a lot of negative ramifications, and a lot of presidents have used it as their ability to actually interfere with other states, which is really funny because it actually notes in the Monroe Doctrine that you can't interfere in any European territories' affairs. Right. And they've used it to actually interfere in European territories' affairs, which is really, really, really weird. And so, but then again, when does the government actually follow its own rules?
So I'm going to call the Monroe Doctrine a double-edged sword for our good-bad tally. That one is neutral,
Yeah,
but
the
the bad marks far exceed the good, and that's going to become increasingly common as we go down the list.
Okay, so fun fact, guys. He was chronically ill from some unknown illness. Last veteran of the Revolution to be president as well. So next we have Ulysses S. Grant. Okay, so here's what's good. All right, so he passed the 15th Amendment, so he extended the right to vote for African Americans. Not that they shouldn't have had it in the first place.
Not that anyone should really be doing
that's a
You know,
much better point, isn't it?
I kind of fall in with Lysander Spooner. I'm paraphrasing him here, but he wrote something on women's suffrage way back when, and it was something along the lines of, I believe women should have the same rights to vote as all men, which is to say none at all.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So he also passed the federal election law, which allows African Americans to vote in the South.
Again,
Yeah.
you know, props
Same
for
argument.
being inclusive, but
Not fair. Okay, yeah, you win that one. So he also passed the Civil Rights Act.
for all the good it did.
I know, right? Didn't really help much. So, I mean, but I feel like these are okay under the amount of tyranny that we were forced to endure, at least, you know, voting rights, right? If we have to have masters, at least allow us to, you know, pretend to vote for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, for the bad. Again, you're going to see a lot more financial crises as we go along the list. And Grant's was the Panic of 1873.
Oh my gosh.
He also passed the Indian Appropriation Act, which made all Indians in United States territory wards of the state, essentially.
Jerk.
Basically, the premise was that the Indians were just children who needed babysitting, and so you could take away all their assets and land and
You know,
do whatever you wanted.
Funny story. I actually passed somebody today. Not passed them, but I was driving behind them. A woman that had 2 bumper stickers on her car. These were the only bumper stickers she had. Proud Native American. And then she also had a sticker that said, "My son is a Marine." And I was like, wow, you are a driving contradiction.
Well, to be fair, the Marines didn't genocide, which should be a verb, by the way. Did not genocide too many Native Americans. It was mostly the Army and particularly the cavalry.
That should be a verb. We just verbed it here on the True Objective. But seriously, I mean, why would you want to go fight for a country and sell yourself to a country that hasn't even legitimized your race as like humans in the United States?
Well, I
They're not
think
really
that
citizens.
about the entire southern United States. It's the former Confederacy where most soldiers in the United States come from to this day. The recruiting is much heavier down there, and you would think their ancestors would have passed on a little bit more wisdom, but perhaps not.
So what else?
Let's see. He created the Civil Service Commission, although fortunately it pretty much had no money, so it was a bit limp while he was in power. And
my favorite.
the Ku Klux Klan Act.
Yeah, this is like my favorite thing because the Free Staters violate this all the time. Ku Klux Klan Act, guy, this is a real thing and you should know about it because you are probably violating it as a libertarian.
It outlaws wearing disguises, forming conspiracies, and intimidating officials, which are all wacky fun, and I think should be part of everybody's daily schedule. But, yeah.
Those are the laws you need to be breaking in the morning. So, fun fact, 12 years after his death, $600,000 was paid to make his tomb the largest mausoleum in North America.
And that was in 19th century money.
Insane. Okay. So, number 21, John Tyler. So, good stuff. All right. Let's see how this goes. All right, so he vetoed the bill for the National Bank.
I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah,
That is
I
pretty
won that one.
straightforward.
Woohoo! Ding ding off for Lauren there. All right, so he also rescinded the gag rule of 1836 that prohibited discussion of anti-slavery petitions.
Well, props for enforcing freedom of speech.
Yeah, I mean, this guy gets major props, but you gotta be asking yourself, why did John Tyler not make it higher on the list? Go ahead and tell them, Calvin.
25th Amendment forbids secession.
Oh, 25th Amendment.
For all the good it did.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see. He continued the Second Seminole Wars and was behind the annexation of Texas. So,
Ooh, yeah.
again, There were plenty of Texans who wanted to be a part of the United States, but there were plenty who didn't, and plenty more Indians who lived in Texas territory at the same time. And Mexicans, for that matter. The native Mexican, Texican, I believe is the term, actually didn't want to secede from Mexico in the first place, or at least a lot of them didn't. So they got stuck in like a double secession in the course of only a couple of years that they wanted no part in. Let's see. You got your fun fact?
Oh, I do. So he was nicknamed His Accidency for taking over after the death of a president.
I believe that was Harrison that he took over from.
Yeah, he did. And so it's just, I think this is really funny, is that he was nicknamed His Accidency. I mean, that's just one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than getting nicknamed Your Accidency. Okay, so next we have, and this is going to be really controversial because a lot of people really, really, really dislike him. And then another group of people really, really like him, but I don't think any of them are probably people listening to the show right now. So, Bill Clinton. So, the good...
fun aside, by the way, my parents called this man, and I grew up thinking when I was really little that the president at the time was named Slick Willie. Like, I actually thought that was his name because that's all they called him.
Oh my goodness. That is the cutest thing I've ever heard. Okay, Calvin, I love you. And so, anyway, Bill Clinton, and excuse me, libertarians, as I attempt to defend him, only because it's my turn. So, but it's okay because Calvin gets the worst of them. So he finally withdrew troops from Somalia after the death of 18 Americans. But he did withdraw them.
Woot.
Woot. Go him!
You don't get points for ending conflicts that you start. That buys you nothing.
That's true.
Let's see. What else you got?
He approved the North American Free Trade Agreement, eliminating nearly every trade barrier between the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
Right.
Free trade! This is good!
I know.
This is great.
I just feel a certain hesitation to giving any props.
Well, yeah, I know. We all got our hang-ups about him. So Clinton also signed the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. The treaty eliminates more than 9,000 warheads. So countries can't really nuke each other. I really hate it when they do that, Just
not that it's happened all
don't
that much.
nuke each other. Because the only people that really die are the innocent ones. Complete aside.
Do you think that we should disband nukes or privatize them?
Privatize them.
All right. Just making sure we're on the same page.
I'm a libertarian. I like weapons.
All right. What else you got?
Okay. And finally, he extended the full diplomatic recognition of Vietnam. So in other words, he pointed at Vietnam and said, "Oh, I think we met at a party somewhere."
I don't think that's quite how it happened.
That's how you recognize that. You don't get that? That's from Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh, I got
that was funny. It's funny because it's Vietnam, and I'm making a joke
from genocide and death and war and all that stuff.
Oh, it's funny.
Hilarity. Okay, so I will again give him props for that. The reason being, I actually read a study a couple of weeks ago that essentially said that there are more people in Vietnam than anywhere else in the world who admit to having capitalist inclinations.
No, I just knew you were going to say that. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would have never happened if Vietnam had been shunned from the developed world. But now that they have access to Western ideas, essentially, they have become more capitalist than just about anyone.
Wow.
So, props for that. On the other hand, we have a task force for national healthcare reform, which he appointed Hillary to run, by the way.
Oh, God, that woman.
She's
worse than him, by a lot.
Perhaps.
Oh,
she hasn't.
Not perhaps.
She hasn't had sex with any interns in her office,
as
far
God.
as we know. But
you know what? I have no problem. with his sex life. I really don't know why people are so upset about it.
I have problems with him lying about it.
Yeah, the lion was pretty irritating. Okay. I mean, if you're gonna have sex with your interns, at least be proud about it. I mean, she was hot. Anyway, so. She was hot. You haven't seen Monica Lewinsky? She is hot,
man. Since I was a little kid, when that was actually, relevant to...
I'd have sex with her. She's hot. Anyway, so...
Let's see. My more conspiracy theory inclined friends know all about this one, but that whole mess with Waco, Texas, and David Koresh and killing that whole mess of people, that was entirely a federal operation, and that was done under Bill Clinton's watch.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact body count, but a lot of people died. They essentially burned down the cult's compound and I got it down here. They killed about 75 people.
Oh, great.
So that was
That's wonderful. I didn't know you wore tinfoil hats, Calvin.
I don't. I just, I know folks. You can't be a member of the FSP without knowing your fair share of conspiracy theorists.
Oh, yeah, Luke Rudowski. Sorry, name dropping. Anyway,
That's true.
So, go ahead.
Let's see.
What else you got?
He drew one of the early plans for universal health care. Let's see. He created the Brady Act, which requires background checks for handgun purchases.
Oh, jeez. No.
There were still, at that point, ways to get around it.
Why is he still alive? That's what I want to know.
What?
If he's creating background checks for guns, why have we not gotten rid of this guy? He shouldn't even be around. I mean, you know how protective the Republicans are of their guns, and how protective the Libertarians are of their guns. I have no idea how this guy's even around anymore. I mean, I know, Liberty people wouldn't do it because they all follow the non-aggression principle, but I'm surprised that somebody hasn't taken this guy out.
Oh, that's not even half as bad as all of the gun control legislation that we have.
Wait until we get to Obama. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Let's see. He introduced a bunch of new welfare initiatives promising to end welfare as we know it. But not in the way that libertarians would want. Let's see. He led NATO air attacks in Serbia, signed the Welfare to Work initiative, and ordered a cruise missile strike in Iraq after Saddam Hussein besieged Erbil, which is in Afghanistan. Let's see. He ordered a 3-day bombing attack against Iraq after Saddam Hussein refused to cooperate with the UN's weapons inspectors, committed perjury and obstructed justice with the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and was impeached but not successfully.
Oh, you made me really rethink putting him as number 20. I mean, how could it get much worse than this, right? And everybody's asking, how can it get much worse than this? But it really can! So, fun fact, before we move on to even worse things, he was the only president who was a Rhodes Scholar.
For all the good it's done us.
I know, right? So anyway, number 19, and he used to be my favorite president. He really did. And do you remember when we were making this list, I argued with you so hard.
You did.
To put him
and you were wrong,
on the top of the list. I know, I was objectively wrong. The guy is a complete jerk. I mean, look at this. So, his good stuff. Okay.
Who are we talking about now?
At least I get to defend
Lauren,
him,
who are we talking about?
Andrew Jackson. You know.
I know, but
I'm supposed to tell the audience, right? Oh, forgot we had an audience. So anyway, Andrew Jackson, this feels like a totally normal conversation in the libertarian world. So.
Other aside, I'm actually related to him, so don't...
That is wonderful.
And I still think he was terrible.
You were related?
I am related to him, yes indeed.
Oh my
I am
goodness.
directly descended from his aunt, and since he didn't have any kids himself, that's about as close as it gets.
Whoa. Guys, we have a celebrity on the show.
Right. It's probably as much of a libertarian as we're ever going to get, but that's aside the point. So.
Actually, I can sense some Andrew Jackson in you. It makes perfect sense, actually.
I do get angry a lot.
Yeah. He was an angry guy. So first thing, he used his veto 12 times. Can't fight with that. Oh, yeah.
I suppose not.
Yeah. He stood up for his Secretary of War's wife when she was publicly chastised for being loose.
Ah, yes.
I like him. He's a defender of the you-know-whats.
That whole incident actually became the defining feature of his presidential term while he was running it. It was just this whole fustercluck.
Fustercluck?
Yes.
I like that. I think I'm allowed to say slut on air, maybe.
I think so.
We'll see. Okay, so yeah, we'll see how this goes. All right, so he stood up for the sluts, and I like him. So so he also closed the Bank of the United States. Ha! I got you on that one.
You do?
Yeah.
Trail of Tears.
Oh.
Boom. What now?
Every time they always bring up the Trail of Tears.
No, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that people assume that Jackson was a racist for that. And I don't think that was the case. And the reason I don't think that was the case is because he actually adopted a Cherokee son.
Yeah.
So I think it was more of just political opportunity.
Yeah, I think it was
else.
pressure. I think he had like a lot of pressure on him. I really.
But whether
think
that's the case or not, that only makes it worse when you swing a certain way personally, but then you cave under pressure. And,
you got to look at the people before him. Like there was a lot of pressure. This had been something in motion for a really long time. And it was kind of just one of those, it's time, we need to set it forward. And I almost feel like it was just one of those things where he was stuck with doing it. He was the person that got stuck with it.
Well,
with the memory of it.
No, I'll tell you why.
Because it was more than just him. There were other presidents involved in this thing. And you know what? I actually think I mentioned it in the list. So.
Well, what I was going to say is that he also kind of obstructed the separation of powers in that whole incident, too, because the Supreme Court ruled on the side of the Cherokees, and then Jackson basically said, so they've made their ruling, now let him enforce it. And he did whatever he wanted to. So, yeah, no props there. Let's see, of course, the Indian Removal Act as well. He proclaimed that no state is allowed to nullify federal law or secede, once again.
Ooh.
And he allowed...
He's the reason that I can't secede. He's the reason we can't get New Hampshire outside of the United States. That makes sense. Okay, so now I really hate the guy.
He also pushed through the Force Bill, which allowed the U.S. Army to enforce federal law, which fortunately doesn't happen much today, but there is precedent for it, courtesy of my long-lost relative. What you got for your fun fact?
Oh, okay. So he escaped the first assassination attempt of a sitting president. Yes, a lot of people think that Lincoln was the first assassination, but actually...
A lot of people are ignorant.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But actually, the first assassination attempt was on Andrew Jackson. So, little fun fact for you. Okay, so number 18, and this was really hard because he was a really, really, really good founding father, but he was just a really bad president. So John Adams is number 18. So the good things. He signed the Treaty of Paris, ending the conflict with France. Not that it should have ever started. And Calvin, that is literally all I got for the guy.
All right,
isn't that sad? Because he literally drove independence from the friggin' from Britain, and all he's got is he ended the conflict with Paris.
I'm pretty sure you're talking about Great Britain, conflict with Great Britain. The treaty was signed in Paris.
No. The Treaty of Paris ended the conflict with France.
We haven't had a conflict with France.
No, it says France. I copied it. Okay, while I look that up, go ahead and tell them about things.
11th Amendment forbade citizens of states and other nations from suing a state. Let's see, he passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which forbade citizens from speaking ill of the government in wartime.
That was the worst one.
Let's see, and what else we got here? The Alien Act, which gave power to the president to order illegal aliens to depart. Let's see, and yeah.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see. So the Treaty of Paris was signed with John Adams, and it was to end the conflict with lovely internet, isn't it? Lovely internet. Oh. It looks like it was Britain. That's weird. I had it down as France. That's
Once
very
again,
strange.
I actually know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but it seems to consistently be the case.
Okay, so it ended the treaty with Britain. I'm sorry, guys.
It ended the conflicts with Britain.
Yeah, it ended the conflict. It ended the treaty. So anyway, next thing is as soon as I get my list back up.
That was John Adams and not John Quincy Adams.
It was definitely John Adams. Definitely John Adams. Okay, it's going to make me scroll all the way down. And this is an interesting little lull. Do you want to tell them the fun fact, Calvin?
Yes. Give me 1 second. My notes are coming up on my...
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so... He was the first president whose son became president. Unfortunately, not the last, but we'll get into that entry at a later time. And he died on the 4th of July along with Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, yeah. Hey, have you heard the story about that whole thing?
I have. You care
In
to tell
fact, you told me the story, didn't you?
I did.
I love this story.
Adams' last words, there was kind of a rivalry between them towards the end of their lives because they both lived a very long time, and it was sort of who would outlive the other. And Adams said something along the lines of, like, Jefferson's still living right before he died, but ironically enough, Jefferson died just a little bit beforehand, but the news hadn't reached him yet.
I mean, it's so morbid. Well, I laugh, but like that's really funny. They were attempting to outlive each other.
I'm going to tell you what, though. I was looking into the Treaty of Paris when you were talking, and you're talking about the one that essentially ended the Revolutionary War. And I'm pretty sure the criteria was that we didn't count anything that happened before they became president.
That's true.
Or else, Teddy Roosevelt would be the best president because he was a complete badass.
Oh, did he sign the treaty with Paris before he was president?
He did.
Oh!
So that buys you nothing. So
Okay,
pretty much we
so
got
in other
the alien
words, John
inspection.
Adams did absolutely nothing right. That's really bad.
Exactly. He just didn't do things worse than some of our later entries.
Did nothing right. He was completely a waste of a president in libertarian terms. So, number 17, John F. Kennedy.
Perhaps the most unjustified portrayal of any president on a coin has to be JFK on the $50.
Oh my God.
Myself.
That man.
Let's see.
Okay, so I have to defend one of the people in history that I hate most. Here we go. Good things. He agreed not to invade Cuba and removed missiles from Turkey in exchange for the removal of Soviet weapons. Take it away, Calvin.
I'm going to say that saying he didn't start a nuclear war is probably not the best talking point for positive things because so long as we're going along that criteria, every president except Truman could say that they didn't use nuclear weapons.
Guess what? He didn't nuke people. Good for JFK. Good for JFK.
What else you got for him?
Okay, he could have nuked people though. Anyway, so he also lifted the naval blockade on Cuba.
So instead of putting physical sanctions on their economy, he just initiated economic sanctions. So that was nice of him.
Yeah.
Again, that buys you nothing.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Created the Peace Corps. Failed Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yep.
Let's see. Halted trade with Cuba, as I said before.
Yeah. Yeah. That naval blockade that he removed, he actually installed it. So, yeah.
He was in charge when the U.S.-supported coup in South Vietnam killed President Ngo Dinh Diem, which I'm sure I butchered, but then again, I speak American. Let's see. And
I speak American.
And your fun fact for him?
You speak Calvin. You don't speak American. Okay. He was the youngest elected president to date.
And that got him a lot of crazy points just because he was attractive.
Because women wanted to have sex with him. That was it. That was all. And by the way,
I think that in and of itself is a pretty
time.
profound condemnation of the U.S. political system when you say that women voted for him because he was hot.
Oh, it was the same thing with Obama. You don't remember that whole
I know,
thing?
And
that man has bigger ears than an elephant. So how could he be sexy? Let's see. So Robert Frost had recited the gift outright at JFK's inauguration because he's so prestigious and fancy. So cultured. Anyway, so let's see. George Bush is number 16. Yeah.
And this is the senior, just to be clear.
Yeah, this is George Bush Sr. Yeah. Okay, so his good stuff. That is so hard to say. So he ended the Cold War.
Did he? It seems to me that the Cold War was something that was, gradually tapering to a close for many years before then, and he just happened to be in office at the time.
That's true.
I'm not giving him credit for that.
You know what? I agree with you. I feel like he didn't really actually do anything in that regard. So I agree. I don't think that it actually is to his credit. I would say totally neutral.
Yep.
So 27th Amendment makes it so that Congress can't give itself a raise. So
It took an awfully long time to get that far, didn't it?
yeah, didn't it? I mean, you'd think they would have taken care of that forever ago. So let's see. The U.S. also signed agreements with Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan, ensuring that continued participation in these nations in the nuclear arms reduction treaties. So,
Again, getting rid of nuclear weapons, while I appreciate the
sentiment.
effort, the sentiment, yeah, we should have privatized those.
Oh, absolutely.
What else you got? Or is that it for the good?
Yeah, that's it for the good. That's about all we got.
Okay, so the bad. He introduced a bailout plan for savings and loan banks. Let's see, he sold $50 billion in government bonds to finance it. Let's see. He passed the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act, which provided $166 billion to pay for the closure of insolvent savings and loan institutions. Let's say he signed a budget law intended to reduce the federal budget and included $140 billion in new taxes, and the whole Desert Storm thing.
Oh, yeah, Desert Storm. That was a fun one. So, fun fact, although Bush Sr. was anti-communist, he disagreed with Senator Joseph McCarthy's tactics and was one of the few men to say so publicly. So that's really weird. You would think that he would agree with McCarthy. Any insight on this, Calvin? You normally have some genius insight on these things.
The fact that a president might be really bad does not make him an inherently terrible person. You can have a developed and sophisticated sense of justice and still be a bad ruler because the position itself brings out the worst in people. And I would say that is, Bush Sr. Was around in the McCarthy era and was vocal in condemning McCarthyism, but that doesn't make his subsequent wielding of power any more just. Also, I'm not going to give him any points for spitting out the crotch dumpling that turned into George W. Bush, because he's much worse on the list. I guess according to our criteria, we can't really count that against him. But he does not get any props for having children. Fair enough. All right, next down.
Okay, the next one we got is James K. Polk. What's funny about Polk is that when I was asked, the first time I got asked who my favorite president was, I was kind of put on the spot. I didn't know any of the presidents, and so I actually picked Polk because I just liked his name. So, funny little story about my youth, when I didn't know anything. I picked Polk, and we put him as number 15 on worst presidents list. Just to remind everybody, the lower your number, the worse you are. So, let's see. Good things. There's only one good thing. He signed the Treaty of Guadalupe, ending the Mexican War.
He did also start the Mexican War, however. So,
yeah, they always do. They always do.
I'm also going to go out on a limb here and say that because the Mexican War, first off, the Mexican War was a blatant example of American imperialism at that time in our history. The U.S. had no reason to be in Mexico whatsoever. This war had no positive motivations whatsoever.
Yeah.
This was just going into Mexico and messing some stuff up.
Interesting.
I would also say that because the Mexican War preceded the American Civil War by a few years, and most of the generals who did all the bloodletting in the Civil War got most of their experience in the Mexican War, perhaps if the Mexican War had not been fought, these experienced generals wouldn't have done anything quite so bloody. But, that might be a little bit of a stretch on my part.
Yeah.
I'm still going to put it forward, though.
Yeah, I like it. I think it should be put forward.
Okay. Also, he created the U.S. Department of the Interior. That combined the General Land Office, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Pension Office, the Bureau of the Census, and the Patent Office. It's pretty much everything got rounded all up into one single bureaucracy. He pyramided the bureaucracy and made the domestic federal government that much bigger for no justifiable reason.
Gross.
Your fun fact?
Oh, fun fact. So he was the only House representative to ever get elected as president, and was the first presidency announced by telegraph.
I didn't know that, actually.
That's fun. So number 14. Only 2 more to go, guys.
All right.
So George Washington. Georgie boy. So
I know that he would be on the top of a lot of uninformed conservatives' best presidents list, but I'm not really sure why.
He's quote unquote everybody's favorite president.
He won a few battles, some through no fault of his own, and you know, I'll be the first to admit that the Continental Army did do a lot of the dirty work in the Revolutionary War. But everything he did after that, with the exception of not running for a 3rd term, was pretty terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what most people cite is, first of all, he was the first to step down gracefully. Second, he didn't want to run again. And third, they claim he's their favorite president and then follow it up with, he fought in the American Revolution. And I'm like, that had nothing to do with his presidency, but he's your favorite president? I mean, by that standard, John Adams can be your favorite president. I mean, Alien Sedition Acts, XYZ affair? I don't think so. So anyway, the point is that nobody should consider George Washington their favorite president that is for any level of liberty. So, but I am going to defend him real quick. So he did not want a 3rd term. Okay,
I don't know if it was that he didn't want one or that he couldn't handle it.
That's a good thought. I never thought to ask that question. Maybe he couldn't handle it. It is a very stressful ordeal. But he also didn't really want to be president in the first place, is the story. He just kind of took it out of a sense of duty. But then again,
what they tell kids in the
victors
history books,
write the history.
What I was going to say is what they tell the kids in the history books is he didn't want to be a king. But honestly, in the long run, I think we might have been better off with another king because it would be somebody to actually rally against and depose. Whereas with
I like that
a presidency that has at least the vestiges of popular consent, people didn't revolt against a government that became increasingly tyrannical because they see themselves as having some sort of voice against it. I honestly kind of like the existence of monarchs because they're very easy to topple, relatively speaking. Democracies are a bit harder.
Makes sense to me.
All right, but you can't fault him for not going more totalitarian.
That's
I'm just
true.
saying that the consequence of that was perhaps not the best.
So he also issued a proclamation of neutrality in the war between the French Republic and England.
And once again, I'm going to say that half the reason for that is because the new United States was completely exhausted at the tail end of the Revolution.
Fair enough.
Yep.
You're going to win a lot of these.
Yep.
Till next week.
Okay, so, for the bad, he established the War Department, the Treasury Department, the Federal Judiciary Act, passed the Naturalization Law, chartered the Bank of the U.S., passed the Whiskey Tax, the Fugitive Slave Act.
Wait, the whiskey tax? Don't just glaze over that. That's just upsetting.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Whiskey's the best part of all of being alive.
So that created a little thing you might have heard of called the Whiskey Rebellion, where people didn't want to pay the whiskey tax, yes. And he led an army to quell it personally, which set up the precedent for using federal troops to intervene in taxation matters, which, oddly enough, was something that I'm pretty sure they fought a war over not too long before then.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that he not only created the whiskey tax and passed it, but then he personally led an army?
George Washington, best president ever.
So he created shenanigans, is pretty much what he did. This guy is like ultimate shenanigans level. I mean, he creates this tax and then leads people in a rebellion against the tax that he passed. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Right,
amazing. Okay, so fun fact, I mean, besides the fact that he, led a rebellion on his own,
He quelled a rebellion.
Quelled a rebellion on his own tax. It doesn't get much more fun than that. But Washington never had children. So, take that as you will. Some people here will love children, and others will not.
Well, he had a whole mess of stepchildren, actually. And when he married Mary Washington, she was the richest woman in Virginia. So.
Yeah. So he was also a Freemason.
Quite a few people were back then.
That's true. But his teeth were also not wooden. They were made of a lot of things. In fact, I posted a video not too long ago.
I think it was, whalebone or something like that?
No, it was, no, it might have been whalebone, but there was, like, there was all kinds of things in it. It's just really gross. I mean, it's actually way worse than wood. I mean, it's no wonder they say that his teeth were wooden, because nobody wants to hear the truth. I mean, it's like telling people what hot dogs are made of. It makes them way less delicious. So
I'm gonna go. I just remember reading this a long time ago. But the reason Washington's teeth rotted out, among other things, is that he ate dubious amounts of ice cream. The Mount Vernon estate actually went through several dozen gallons of it a month while he lived there.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
He had a sweet tooth.
He and
my sister.
It is estimated that he died of strep throat.
Whoa. I mean, the ice cream would have come in handy if he had recovered.
Well, that's not one of those things you recover from before the age of
that's true. Normally you have like the ice cream after strep throat, but I guess, ice cream may have aided in the strep throat this time.
Yep.
Wow. That's a doozy. I guess maybe you shouldn't be eating ice cream after strep throat.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay, so, he also, sorry guys, he didn't chop down the cherry tree. I know it's a cute little story, but it's actually
completely apocryphal.
Totally not true.
There were a number of people in the early days of this country who wanted to create a sort of American mythology to enshrine our leaders as demigods in the Greek sense of the word. And I regret to say they've kind of succeeded.
Yeah. I agree. There's so many stories out there about presidents that you'll hear, and you really just gotta, look into the facts and look and see if they're true. A lot of people make up these stories, especially the earlier in history that you look at these presidents.
When it was harder to verify lies.
Yeah, it's true.
Nowadays, you can fact check something on Google in, seconds. Whereas back then, if a popular historian perpetuated a lie, a lot of times people honestly just assumed that if it was in a book, it had to be at least, somewhat factual.
Plus, it was fun, and everybody just thought fun was great back then. Nowadays, we've got the media, which uncovers all the gossip, so you can't tell any.
Of our leaders?
No, we should totally be critical of our leaders, but I'm just saying that the media definitely gets involved in the wrong things. They uncover the wrong things. They bother with silly stuff like, if politicians are sleeping with their secretaries instead of, the fact that their welfare policy is actually complete BS. Huh?
I don't know. It seems to me that those sorts of things can have their place. If the president who's screwing his secretary is, for example, promoting, an aggressively conservative family values agenda, for example, that might be newsworthy. A lot of it is the context.
I guess. But, nobody actually thought Hillary and Bill were still, playing patty cake. It was not happening.
Is that what we're calling it now?
We're calling it on air. Especially because I've said sex in this episode like 4 times. I'm pretty sure I'm going to name this episode sex at this point. So, anyway, we are at the end of our list for this week, but we do want to tell you that next week is our last list, isn't it?
It can be. We have, I believe, 13 more to go through, but we can power through it.
We can totally power through it. Maybe we'll do. No, I don't want to spend a whole. Anyway, so we can power through the next 13 in the next episode. We've got the remaining 13. So if you want to go through the last episodes, you guys should. They're on iTunes. There'll be links on the Facebook page for True Objective, and you guys should totally go through those. And we had a great time tonight. We missed you guys. We hope you guys will go like True Objective on Facebook, and of course go like my Lauren Rumpler page. And eventually we're gonna Calvin blogging or something, because
I still blog on occasion.
He is so talented. I mean, this man knows everything. He's a mental giant. It's awesome. And so I think that's really it for the week. Is we just missed you, and make sure you stay tuned. And remember, guys, knowledge is not for all men, but for those who seek it. So keep seeking.